What happens when two of television's most powerful women collide in a heated exchange that nobody saw coming? Today, we're diving into a moment so intense, so unexpected, that it left viewers across the country absolutely Some say it changed daytime television forever. This was not just another tense interview or a fleeting disagreement. This was a clash of influence, ideology, and unapologetic strength. So buckle up, hit that subscribe button, and make sure to let me know in the comments what you think about this jaw-dropping confrontation. That still has people talking. The studio lights blazed down on the familiar set of The View as the show's hosts took their positions around the iconic circular table. From the outside, everything looked routine. Another weekday morning. Another high-profile guest. Another conversation meant to spark debate. But behind the scenes, there was a subtle shift in the air, an unspoken tension that neither the crew nor the audience could quite explain. It felt charged, almost restless, as if something monumental was about to unfold. Joy Behar adjusted her reading glasses, flipping through her stack of notes with the ease and confidence of someone who had spent decades commanding live television. She sat back in her chair, composed yet alert, her expression signaling that she was more than ready for whatever discussion lay ahead. Around her, the other co-hosts settled in whoopigoldberg.com and observant at the center. Sunny hot, poised and analytical, Sarah inattentive, and Alyssa Farah-Griffin, quietly scanning the room. Then came the announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our very special guest, media mogul, philanthropist, and global icon Oprah Winfrey. The reaction was immediate and thunderous. Applause erupted from the studio audience, echoing off the walls as people leaped to their feet. Cameras swung toward the entrance as Oprah stepped onto the set, radiating her signature presence. She moved with effortless grace, waving warmly to the crowd, acknowledging their admiration, without appearing overwhelmed by it. Decades in the spotlight had taught her how to command a room without ever raising her voice. Oprah wore a crisp white blazer that seemed to glow beneath the studio lights, a subtle symbol of authority and elegance. Her posture was confident, her expression open yet guarded the look of someone who had faced countless interviews, controversies, and conversations, and had learned when to smile and when to hold her ground. As she took her seat in the guest chair, the energy in the room shifted once again. This time, unmistakably. "Oprah, it's so wonderful to have you here with us today," Whoopi Goldberg said, her voice warm and sincere. As the moderator, Whoopi had seen her fair share of tense exchanges, but even she appeared especially attentive now. "Thank you for having me, Whoopi," Oprah replied. "It's always a pleasure to be here with you ladies." Her famous smile lit up the set, drawing another wave of applause from the audience. For a few moments, everything proceeded exactly as expected. The conversation began smoothly, touching on Oprah's philanthropic work, her legacy in media, and her continued influence in shaping cultural conversations. Oprah spoke thoughtfully, her words measured and intentional, drawing nods from both the hosts and the audience. Then Joy Behar leaned forward. It was subtle as a small shift in posture, but seasoned viewers noticed it immediately. Joy wasn't interrupting, but she was preparing. Her fingers rested against her notes, her gaze fixed on Oprah with a look that was curious, skeptical, and unmistakably sharp. Joy began, her tone casual but precise. "You've been one of the most powerful voices in media for decades. But some critics say that with that power comes responsibility and, occasionally, controversy." The room seemed to still. Oprah's smile didn't fade, but it tightened slightly, just enough to suggest that she knew where this was going. The audience leaned in, sensing the shift. This was no longer a friendly chat, it was becoming something else. Joy continued, carefully choosing her words. "Whether it's political influence, endorsements, or shaping public narratives, do you ever worry that your platform carries more weight than accountability?" A murmur rippled through the audience. Cameras cut to Whoopi, whose expression remained neutral but alert. Sunny raised an eyebrow, sensing the escalation. Oprah paused. Silence stretched for a heartbeat. Longer than comfortable. Then she spoke. "I believe accountability begins with intention," Oprah said calmly. "I've always used my platform to elevate voices, encourage thought, and inspire growth. But influence doesn't mean control. People still choose how they receive information." Joy nodded, but she wasn't finished. "Sure," she replied. "But when millions listen, when lives are impacted, intention alone might not be enough." That was the moment. The polite smiles vanished. The air thickened. This was no longer about media theory. It was personal, philosophical, and deeply rooted in how power should be wielded. Two women who had shaped television in entirely different ways were now staring directly at each other. Neither willing to back down, Oprah straightened in her chair, her voice still calm, but firmer now. "I don't shy away from difficult conversations, Joy. But I reject the idea that leadership means silence or restraint out of fear." The audience erupted not in applause, but in shocked whispers. Whoopi leaned forward, sensing the need to intervene, but even she hesitated. Because what was unfolding wasn't chaos, it was a reckoning. Two giants, one table, and a conversation that daytime television would never forget. Joy Behar leaned forward slightly, her expression turning noticeably more serious. The light-hearted tone that had defined the early moments of the conversation evaporated, replaced by something heavier, more deliberate. This wasn't a casual follow-up question or a passing remark. This was something that had clearly been weighing on her for quite some time. "Oprah," Joy began, her voice measured but firm, "I have to ask you about something that's been bothering me for quite a while now." The studio, once buzzing with comfortable energy, grew unusually quiet. "Your recent interview special seemed to give a platform to some pretty controversial figures without really challenging them on their more problematic statements." The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees in an instant. Audience members shifted in their seats, sensing the shift. The easy smiles vanished from the faces of the co-hosts, replaced by cautious, uncertain expressions. This was no longer a friendly discussion, it was becoming a confrontation. Oprah's smile remained in place, but it subtly changed. It no longer radiated warmth. Instead, her eyes sharpened with focus, locking onto Joy with an intensity that spoke volumes. She paused for a brief moment, collecting her thoughts before responding. "I'm sorry, Joy," Oprah said calmly, her tone polite but guarded, "but I'm not sure I follow what you're getting at. Could you be more specific about which interview you're referring to?" Joy didn't hesitate. "You know exactly which one I'm talking about," she shot back, her voice gaining a sharp edge that made the other hosts exchange uncomfortable glances. Sunny Hosteen leaned back slightly, lips pressed together, while Sarah N. stared down at the table, clearly sensing that the conversation had crossed into dangerous territory. "The one," Joy continued, "where you sat there nodding along, while your guest made claims that were completely unfounded and potentially harmful to millions of people." A ripple of murmurs moved through the audience. Some nodded in agreement. Others looked stunned that Joy would challenge Oprah so directly on live television. Oprah's posture straightened. She tilted her head slightly, a subtle but unmistakable sign that her patience was being tested. When she spoke again, her voice remained controlled. But there was no mistaking the shift in authority. "Joy," she said evenly, "I think you might be mischaracterizing what happened in that interview. My role as an interviewer is to create a space where people feel comfortable sharing their truths even when that truth might be difficult to hear." "Their truth?" Joy interrupted, her voice rising, causing several audience members to visibly shift in their seats. "Oprah, there's a difference between someone's truth and actual facts." The tension now was unmistakable. The studio felt frozen in time, every camera locked in, every crew member holding their breath. "When someone comes onto your show," Joy continued, her words sharper now, "and spreads misinformation and you just sit there, smiling and nodding, you're not being neutral. You're giving credibility to dangerous ideas." The other hosts sat in stunned silence as the clash escalated. Sunny Hostin looked like she wanted to jump in, her body leaning forward slightly, but she couldn't find an opening. Sarah N. appeared frozen in her chair, eyes darting between the two women. Even Whoopi Goldberg, known for stepping in during tense moments, remained unusually quiet. Sensing the gravity of what was unfolding, Oprah took a slow breath. When she spoke, her voice remained calm, but now it carried a steel undertone that veteran viewers had rarely heard before. "Joy," Oprah said firmly, "I've been doing this for over 4 decades. I think I understand the responsibility that comes with having a platform." The audience fell completely silent. "What you're describing," Oprah continued, "isn't journalism. It's advocacy. And there is a difference." That was the moment everything exploded. "Don't you dare lecture me about journalism." Joy fired back instantly, her cheeks flushing red. Gone was the composed commentator. This was personal now. Someone is hiding behind false neutrality. Gasps echoed through the studio. Joy leaned forward, her voice trembling, not with uncertainty, but with conviction. "You can't just invite someone on, let them say whatever they want, and then wash your hands of the consequences. Neutrality is complicity. Oprah's eyes didn't waver. And shouting people down isn't accountability, she replied sharply. If we stop listening, we stop understanding. And when we stop understanding, we lose the ability to change minds. The audience was visibly divided. Some nodded at Oprah's words. Others murmured in agreement with Joy. The energy in the room was electric. Regained control of the conversation, but even she hesitated. Because what was happening wasn't just a debate. It was a collision of philosophies, of generations, of two women who had shaped television in profoundly different ways. This wasn't about one. About where conversation ends and accountability begins. And as the cameras kept rolling, one thing became crystal clear. Daytime television had just crossed a line it could never uncross. The audience had gone completely silent, hanging on every single word of the unexpected confrontation unfolding before them. What had begun as a routine daytime interview had transformed into something far more raw and unsettling. No one dared to cough. No one shifted in their seat. Even the faint rustling that usually filled the studio during tense moments was gone, replaced by a heavy stillness that pressed down on everyone in the room. Even the camera operators seemed mesmerized by the drama as it unfolded. Their movements slowed, their framing instinctive rather than planned, capturing every raised eyebrow, every tightened jaw, every flicker of emotion that crossed the faces at the table. This wasn't scripted television. This was real, and everyone could feel it. Oprah leaned back slightly in her chair, drawing a measured breath. Her expression shifted. What had initially been surprise hardened into something far more intense. The warmth that usually defined her presence gave way to a look of quiet resolve. False neutrality. Oprah repeated, her voice steady but edged. Joy, with all due respect, I think you've lost sight of what real journalism looks like. A low murmur rippled through the audience before quickly dying out. It's not about pushing an agenda, Oprah continued, her tone sharpening, or forcing your guest to conform to your personal worldview. Journalism is about asking the right questions and then allowing people to reveal themselves. Reveal themselves. Joy scoffed, letting out a sharp, humorless laugh that sliced through the silence. The only thing your interview revealed was that you're more interested in ratings than in truth. A collective gasp swept through the studio. Joy leaned forward, her eyes locked onto Oprah with unflinching intensity. You used to stand for something, she said, her voice trembling with anger rather than uncertainty. What happened to the woman who wasn't afraid to challenge power? The words hung in the air like a gauntlet thrown down. For a brief moment, no one spoke. Eyes narrowed, and for the first time since the exchange began, her composure showed the slightest crack. It was subtle, something only long-time viewers would notice, but it was there. Her jaw tightened, her shoulders stiffened. I think you have some nerve, Oprah said slowly, her voice lowering. Sitting there, questioning my integrity and my commitment to truth. I have nerve. Joy shot back, incredulous. Before anyone could react, Joy stood up from her chair. The movement was sudden enough to make several audience members flinch. In the control room, producers frantically gestured to the camera operators, silently urging them to keep rolling, to capture every second of this unprecedented moment. No one was calling for a commercial break now. This was television history happening in real time. You're the one who's lost touch with reality. Oprah, Joy said, her voice escalating, echoing slightly in the studio. You've become so concerned with being liked by everyone that you've forgotten how to stand up for anything meaningful. The studio fell into complete silence, broken only by the faint hum of the cameras still rolling. Whoopi Goldberg finally stirred, her hand lifting slightly as if to intervene, but she stopped herself. Whatever this was, it had gone far beyond moderation. Sunny Hostin sat frozen, eyes wide, while Sarah N stared straight ahead, visibly unsure where to look. Oprah remained seated, but her presence filled the room. Standing up for something, Oprah replied, her voice calm but iron-strong. Doesn't require shouting people down or humiliating them on national television. Joy shook her head sharply. That's not what this is. This is about accountability. And you've abandoned it. I have not, Oprah snapped, her voice rising just enough to surprise the audience. What I've refused to do is turn conversation into combat. Joy laughed again, but this time there was no humor at all. Conversation without challenge is propaganda? The audience shifted, divided, unsettled. Some nodded in agreement with Joy's words. Others sat stiffly, clearly siding with Oprah. The energy in the room felt volatile, as though one wrong word could cause it to explode completely. Oprah stood up slowly. Gasps echoed through the studio. "I will not be lectured," Oprah said. Her voice steady, but powerful, by someone who confuses outrage with impact. Joy stepped back slightly, then squared her shoulders. "And I won't be silenced by someone who's forgotten why people trusted her in the first place." The tension was suffocating now. Even the producers had stopped gesturing. No one knew how or if this could be pulled back. Whoopi finally spoke, her voice calm but commanding. Okay, let's take a breath." Neither woman looked at her. This wasn't just a disagreement anymore. It was a reckoning between two philosophies, two generations of media, two definitions of power. Oprah broke the silence first. "I've spent my life amplifying voices," she said quietly, "not controlling them. And I will not apologize for believing that people deserve to be heard even when we disagree." Joy crossed her arms. "And I'll never apologize for believing that truth matters more than comfort." They stood there, facing each other across the iconic table, neither willing to back down. The cameras kept rolling. The audience remained frozen. And somewhere between the studio lights and the deafening silence, one thing became unmistakably clear. Daytime television had just crossed into territory it had never dared to enter before, and there was no turning back.